Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast, in association with Simco Training. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I want to start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. So building Waylands, 10 dealerships up to at the moment. When you're acquiring a business, what strategy do you look for? Do you look for the culture of the business? Is it just a regional location where they are? Is it just acquire whatever you can? Do you have a strategy?
No. It's around about, for me, it's around about region and it's around about brand. So what we want to do is we set out a strategy where we wanted to represent brands that were going to be strong in and around EV. I see EV as the future. It doesn't seem to be going away, despite what the latest noise is around about synthetic fuels. I think it feels like trains left the station, the tanker's moving, EVs are coming. So I wanted to position myself with brands that represented that. I knew Volvo were making some big statements around about, you know about safety, you know about sustainability, but clearly being electric and being electric earlier for them. So yeah, absolutely, they will be a fully electric car brand by 2030 and probably earlier. If you look at Kia, a fully electric car brand by 2030.
Great.
MG, again, a new entrant, more budget, and that was part of it, because with Volvo pushing more premium, I think Kia's premium volume, and then we needed a budget so I could actually cover my areas with the full offering. Polestar is sports premium, and I think, but again, the only other fully electric global EV brand. So I was quite clear. And we said no a few times in terms of what brands that we wanted to represent. We want brands that can achieve volume, that are growing, that we can grow with. And we want to do it in areas of the country that I am familiar with. So we work along the Thames Valley, which is the area to the west of London, all the way down to Bristol in the west of England. But I can cover that entire area within 90 minutes. Which means they probably get a visit. Once you start getting to 2.5 hours, I know what it's like. You have to think about it. I'm going to have to think about going there. And that's why I think there's a strength to actually dominating an area rather than just going and grabbing any brand or any dealership in any area just to grow a number. I don't think that leads to some of the advantages of having a scaled, contiguous dealer group with the right brands.
Regional, but also the brands you've got, the EV, you're right, on from MG, Kia and Volvo. They are all, can I say this, EV leaders almost in their fields.
I think they are in their own ways. Yeah, absolutely.
I can hear the people from Volkswagen Group yelling at me now, but they do have, I'm just super impressed what Kia has done with some of the stuff there. I
think that for me, I honestly thought when we were doing the research, it was a volume brand. But when you sit in an EV6, the new Sportage, the new Sorento, it's a premium car. And once you start looking at the numbers on these cars, phenomenal what they deliver, the quality of the vehicle, and that's why I don't say it's a volume brand anymore. I say it's a premium volume brand. When you've won that car of the year, globally, it does make a difference, and that car is phenomenal, and that's why we've got 12 to 18 month waiting lists on an EV6.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and also the people who deal with Kia as a brand. We work with Kia Europe, and the people we deal with are just so good to deal with, and we wrote a whole lot of training around EV6 when it came out there, and it's just they just want to get things done.
And there's a reason why they come out strongly in the National Franchise Dealer Association surveys, the number one again. And it's a level of consistency. It's a level of, creating an expectation and then delivering on it. Yeah. And those are the things as a partner. There's no surprises. Here's what you've got to do. Here's your job. Go and do it. And it's controlled. And that all makes perfect sense for us.
Yeah. The next question then, acquiring a business. And this comes from Peter Smythe, actually, the Swansway Group. And I know you know John and David there and Mr. Smythe. But Peter said, Simon, the hardest thing is when we acquire a business is getting the Swansway culture into this new business we acquired. And he says, no, you're going to have a lot of pain. There's going to be resistance. You must have gone through that as well, because Waylands has got a culture. How much of the Waylands culture is the previous company's culture? I'm sure there's some similar things because you're working for both. But the question is, how difficult is it to get the culture of Waylands into that new business?
It's tremendously difficult. How
do you go about doing that? What steps do you do to make sure? Is it integrating as many Waylands people into that business as you can?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So you get, so generally we set out our stall early. So yes, you will get the group presentation, but then every single member of staff will be given, a one-on-one discussion. What's been happening? Where are you? What do you want to do? So from day one, we gain an understanding of them, but we suddenly become much more sharing. So I think if you work for a Waylands business, you've probably got more access to more information about the business, and we're consistent about it. So we just don't turn up, plug in 10 people, we do 3 months, and then we go away and welcome to the group. We do go back, we do revisit, and then it's just actually doing what you promise. So everything in the culture from birthday cards, Christmas cards, Easter cards, 5-year cards for the company birthday, down to our quarterly road shows, 3-4 month out. I might have to say trimesterly road shows, but actually sharing the information. Here's what's going on. We've got the Waylands Way, which is just a printed analog magazine we send out to everyone.
I love that. Well, This is Alison, your marketing person, your first employee, isn't it? This is where she was. April. Yeah. Sorry, April. Okay.
But those are the parts that, yes, out externally, do we have a social presence yet? Do we have a digital presence? Yes, we do. But internally, let's not forget, if you're the husband, wife, partner to a member of a team, wouldn't it be nice if you just knew what was happening and who's that bloke and who's she and what she do? And that's why we do it. So we send it out, and it's we spend the money, it's a glossy, and we just want them to take it home and show and have that little bit of pride about what they do, leaving it around, and mums and dads, sons and daughters can have a little read through it. And even if they just look at the pictures, that's great. And we just want to build on that. We do the engagement surveys. I think we were slightly annoying because the engagement survey went green on the first engagement survey, and that's not the way it's meant to work. They like to go from a red amber into a green, but we've improved on it, and we continue to improve on it. And despite what people, even the teams just don't believe it's me answering, and it's entirely anonymous. But I do 250, and it's a lot of late nights at the kitchen table, just so I can still see what's happening in the family. But it's just making sure we answer all those, because if you've taken the time to write to me with an issue or a problem or an opportunity, then I want to give it. So there's not a quick fix. And
I bet you learned so many opportunities from that. Simple things where people right there at the sharp end said, why aren't we doing it this way? And over the years, I'm sure there's so many things you put in place.
And it just lights up. And it also demonstrates where you've got something wrong, because it's always my fault. So if is it the wrong appointment of a manager? Is it the wrong GM? Is it a wrong process? Whatever the problem is, it lights up, because that'll be the business that's doing the most comments. That's the business that's fretting about things you think you wouldn't normally be fretting about that if there wasn't something else going on. So as a little temperature gauge, it's fantastic. But that's what Peter's referring to in terms of how long does it take? Because people won't believe you. Yeah. Because a lot of these businesses, there's usually a reason for a sale of a business. And, some of the businesses that we've been lucky enough to pick up, they've been a little bit battered and bruised. And it's not the guy's fault, and it's worse than that. When I come in and, when Waylands buys a business, it's not the employee's fault that I bought the business. But I think they've just got to build that trust, and with the trust you get the culture. And actually, he does listen. He will do something about it. His team will listen. The team will do something about it.
Yeah, again, if you're buying I don't want to use the word broken business, but there are businesses that there's a reason why it was sold. And maybe someone's planning to sell it and wanted their EBITDA to look good and didn't invest in anything and ramps and blah, blah, blah.
And you'll see that in every business go into, we have to paint, generally relight, always have to spend a lot of money on equipment. Because again, if you're saying you want to deliver some of the best customer service, some of the most efficient, then you've got to give the guys the tools to do it. And whether it's laptops or whether it's workshop tools, they've got to have them, and it should be a great environment to do it in. And I'm not saying that we need to have a brand new workshop all air conditioned, but actually they probably should be heated, and they should be painted, and they should be clean, and you should have enough lighting so you can actually do your job. So, that's a part. And, especially when it comes to back of house, our group after sales director, Richard, who worked with me at Richard Spencer, who worked with me at Ridgeway again, always keeps me honest in terms of after sales as much as we sometimes get distracted by the shiny lights on the front of the building and forget about, the absorption that's provided from the back of the building.
And Dave Peel, when he was running Robinson Day, before going on to Peugeot, I learned a lesson from him. He'd go into a new business within Robinson Day and go straight to the canteen and said, let's get this painted. Let's just get it painted. Now that's within Robinson Day. He was going from one place to the other. And it just sets out a marker that, hold on, these guys are different now. He's going to listen to what we're doing. And because that's where the technicians all get together. That's where the chat happens after the meeting.
Or they don't, they only go there when they're going to have that, and that's the part. So if you came to my offices in Oxford, right next door to the canteen, next door to the canteen. So I don't want to say I can listen, but you're not that far away. You can hear the hubbub of the excitement around and about.
So listen, we run a sales training company, obviously. So this is a vested interest in what we do. But can you talk about when you're looking to employ someone, when you're looking to either, maybe not even to employ someone, but a promotion within your business? I need a new head of business or a dealer principal somewhere. What are some of the character traits you look for when you're looking for that future leader in your business?
Yeah, and again, a lot of the time we've employed for potential rather than because we're a growing business. And we can allow the guys to grow with us. So it's about having some of the skills in the toolbox that can be refined, that can be just honed and sharpened. So, if you look at some of our general managers now, a few of them were sales managers or general sales managers, after sales manager who grew into that role. But because we're not too big, we can give that, that level of personal training, personal attention to actually help them on that journey. And that's worked really well for us. Sometimes we thought outside the box and it's not quite worked, but that doesn't mean the person's wrong. That just might mean the opportunity was wrong, or we've made the wrong decision round about it. So we'll then find the right spot for that person. Again, we can demonstrate where we've done that as well. So for me, it's about the right attitude, the right levels of energy, and demonstrating in the job they've done it with a level of care and competency. So, and especially in the world that we've got that is changing, and the disruption might not come from places that we thought the disruption was coming from. It's the growth of digital, and it's some of the ways that the cars will be distributed will be our biggest challenges, and actually having mindsets that can deal with that. And I'm really, really aware of it. I'm an old dog now, and it's actually making sure that you keep yourself open enough to the ideas so you can still identify where the value is, where the opportunity is. And that's really difficult because, yes, we do have a digital sales team. Yes, we do have a marketing department. Yes, we do have, lots of sales and after sales professionals. But the investment comes down to me and the FD to sit down and have that discussion. And if we don't understand or we're not open enough, how will we be able to embrace those ideas? So having some of those younger guns in the business who are more naturally either have the ability to understand it or more naturally just interested in it really does make a difference, and it then allows us to make more of the right decisions than the wrong decisions, or even just make a decision on the way through. So I think that was a very long-winded way of answering that question.
No, it was. It was, and thank you for that, because there's two other things, two other questions that spring to mind from your answer. You said how we're going to change. We're going through lots of change at the moment. The digital process, and it might not be the disruptors we thought of, but then also I've got to mention the other bit, the A word, agency. And there's not been too many conversations I've had over the last 18 months with investors where agency hasn't come up. They hear the Australian accent. They know that Honda did agency 2 years ago. Mercedes-Benz did it 2 years ago. There's a big court case out there at the moment that they're still waiting for the results of there. So I want to get your views on this agency. What are the advantages? Well, let's not go down there, because we've heard the advantages and disadvantages from the OEM all day long. Okay, but from your point of view as an investor, agency's got to have an effect on goodwill, hasn't it, of the company? Is it going to be good for Waylands, or is it going to be neutral for Waylands, or is it going to be something you've got to be wary of?
That's a great question, Simon. He said, give himself some thinking room. I've been heavily involved in one of our brands' strategy and moved towards agency. So I've just got to be careful about exactly what I say and how I say it. So, but I've done a few of these, so I should be getting better at it.
It's on everyone's mind, isn't it? Everyone wants to know about it.
And especially with the brand that we've been working with most closely. It is absolutely front and center at this moment in time. And I guess we'll hear more about exactly when it's arriving. But I think it's arriving much in line with the expectations that's being created. How was that? Was that just big enough to get me off the hook with that? To answer your question, what's good for the customer should be front and center of our thinking. If it's good for the customer, it will generally be good for the business in the long term. What I think we've got is such a radical shift that I think it's incumbent upon all the brands who pursue this strategy to make sure that everything's lined up as much as possible before they press the button. And I think we've seen some friction points with that, with some of the brands that you've spoken about. I think with Volvo, we have spent a lot of time working so hard round about the legal and the agreements. They don't have hundreds, if thousands of people pushing hard on systems. We've done lots of work round about where the pitfalls will come that I think will be more prepared than most. I would always argue that another couple of months we could be even more prepared, but I guess there comes a point where you've got to make a decision. And they will have to be the judge of that, because we can only see what we can see. They can see everything. So I'm trusting in their partners to get that part right. Now, if we can get that right and we can begin to enjoy some of those advantages, no price friction, taking out that difficult part, more availability of the right stock at the right time, taking out the customer. You begin to talk about some real wins for the customer. And the downsides with those new systems, if the training isn't as good as it should be, then you're going to have a bumpy few months and maybe a bumpy couple of quarters. But in the medium and the long term, you'll get over that. You always do, and you always see in the other markets, the other territories, the agencies come in after a horrible first few months, the percentages begin to recover, albeit not quite to where it was. So that's the challenge. Can a manufacturer doing it in their own way with the right systems at the right time, can they get the competitive leap, because otherwise, just sit back and wait and see if this works.
Yeah, the first move, there is always a danger in that. You are market leader, it's great, but you're the first person to hit all the problems.
There's a reason why it's called bleeding edge.
Yes.
Because it can get bloody.
That's it. And do you think, again, James Vortman, from the chairman of the Australian Automotive Dealers Association, he's right at the centre of this court case in Australia, where the Mercedes-Benz dealers, 90%, I believe, are taking their manufacturer to court. Whenever you ever heard of 90% of the dealers taking their OEM
it doesn't play well. It doesn't play well.
It does. And listening from the sidelines, it would appear it's more how it was rolled out, not agency itself. And I imagine lots of OEMs are looking at that closely and seeing what are the lessons they can learn from that. Do you think there'll be a landslide towards agency once that court case comes out? If Mercedes-Benz wins it, do you think more people say, yep, it's right to go? Are OEMs waiting to see the results of that before they pull the trigger?
I don't think it's so much that court case. I think it's more just let's watch, because we know that a few of the brands have been planning. You look at some of the Germans outside of Mercedes, have been planning, have just slowed it down, delayed it a little, because it is really complex what you've got to do. And once they begin to understand what a franchise dealer does, I think it's actually quite revealing. And, even down to changes that are made in the week before, because a manufacturer, an order process is nailed down, and the car goes through a factory process, comes out the other end. Great. What happens when the customer wants to change the deposit or the colour? Or there's so many little things that happen just in that run up. I'd take out the part exchange, but it's nailed down. Yeah, but we've got people who, in the space of minutes, will change everything for you. If you've then got to go back through a call center, who's doing those calls? Is it us? Is it the customer? Yeah. So those are the parts that I think are the real friction areas that, as a dealer, if we go too soon with agency, even with the best systems in the world, we'll have a problem. So that's where it's incumbent upon the manufacturer to make sure he does it at the right time. On the other hand, if it works, that's what I think will drive would drive a lot of other manufacturers to look at it. If Volvo suddenly start doing big market share, but it's done in the right channels. So if it's done with lots of retail and small and corporate fleet and less outside, then that's that. I think you put a big tick in the box, because we've seen Mercedes has been, you only have to look at their registration numbers. And I think that's where people are looking, and that's where they'll be assessing, because best will in the world, you can save yourself a lot of money in a distribution channel, but it doesn't matter if you're not selling any cars.
Yeah. The other bit that, again, this might be naive. I've never worked for an OEM, so Dale's probably the right person to speak to about this. But from my point of view, a manufacturer has to, 12 months, 18 months, plan what cars they want down the track. That's how long the cycle is. So there's always going to be where they're going to build things where their best guess what we want 18 months down the track. So there's almost has to be an element of push in environment. In agency, what happens with push? Does that then do what Tesla happens, and he just discounted all his cars by 19% and really devalued the market and upset a lot of his customers?
Huge problems in the market, yeah.
Huge problems. Can you imagine being that Tesla customer who bought the car on the 23rd of December and then on the 6th of January knows that, it's 19% less?
Yeah. But a car dealer that owns a lot of Teslas or ID3s or, any EV that you talk about, any used EV.
So in agency, how does that push? How does the agency, the OEM deal with that? Does it go back to brokers? I would always say brokers have always been, I'm going to upset some people here, but sometimes the parasite of our business, because, and sorry, the guys at Leasing Options, don't be offended by me there, a necessary part of the business.
Yeah.
How does that happen in agency?
I think, you're going to have, I suppose, the one difference that you do have from where we were is you do have a much more simplified model lineup for most manufacturers. So whereas there was millions of options that you could order, we're down to thousands and it could be down to hundreds. So there's less, but that doesn't get in the way if your model's either the wrong model and a sector moves on, or someone else who's much more competitive in that sector. Because, you know, manufacturers don't work in vacuums, they don't work in their environments, they're in the market. So I think from that perspective, they'll have to find ways, and having still a little bit of those dirty channels, to our rental friends. You know, I think brokers comes with its own worries around about compliance. And how do we get round that? If it's B2C, how you ensure some of the good outcomes, the consumer duty covers. So you've got lots to think about and worry about, but they will have to find that little release valve. So hopefully they've got some really great commercial guys in the organisation, because best of all in the world, we can turn demos. But we can only do that the once. You know, once you've done it, once you've changed your demonstrator fleet, to do it again then begins to get really expensive, and then you start getting into those bad habits that drove a lot of our our margins down very quickly. So I think because we've been at a time when there's been much less rental business, or fleets have been hanging on to the cars for longer, it's a good time to actually try out and make sure you got it. But I'm guessing in 12 months' time, where a few of the factories are now running at full tilt and manufacturers are wanting to actually gain back that market share, then it'll become more difficult. And that's where you'll have to make sure that your pricing, your analytics, your penetration into the market is much stronger. You understand it more, and you're reacting not in, what Tesla did was quite blunt in terms of taking the list price down, albeit they only had just put it up to take it back down again. I think there are other ways of being more subtle around it.
Devaluing the brand, I just think, now listen, he's a very smart man, smarter than I am, John, but again, you didn't have to agree so wholeheartely with that.
No, I'll just look at how many pounds or dollars he had in the bank. He's ahead of both of us.
Oh, he definitely knows.
He's not done too badly.
He's done all right there. But again, the disruption to that brand there, devaluing the brand, it's colossal.
Well, it's the whole segment, because in the UK,
EV prices everywhere. But you had also the fact that through 16,000 registers he registered 16,000 cars. The boats all turned up. All those cars went out in December. And I don't know what Tesla do. 60,000 cars in the UK. Well, no, 25% of his was in December, wasn't it?
In 1 month, our smallest month of the year. That was the first time we've ever had a lot of part exchanges. So that's the first part. And then, so there was a shake in the market anyway, because it is a much smaller market, used retail EVs. And then on top of that, to then move the pricing. So it wasn't just Tesla that got the fright. It just sent ramifications out for everyone on EVs. And that's still not recovered. And it feels like it won't be, days or weeks, it'll be months before we get through that. And there'll be a lot of lease goes, there'll be rental companies set up around about EVs that'll all be, they'll be under pressure at the moment, because they've got cars that they're not getting anywhere near their standing values.
Let's talk about EVs then, and get your views on this. We're going to an EV world, 2030. Had a few American friends on this, said, let me tell you, it'll never happen in a million years. It'll never happen. And then I said, well, actually, we have a Kia business in London that 64% of their vehicles they sold were EVs, and that shocked them. Now, legislation's driving that in Chiswick, central London. So, of course, that happens there. But I want to get your views on how it's going to change the dealership, because EV vehicles, there's going to be less servicing requirements, right? How's that going to have an impact on the after-sales side of your business?
I think we're working really hard to get our head around it. Absolutely, there are less moving parts in an EV, and even the parts that we relied upon. So brakes, we know, are used much less on an EV versus an ICE. But we do know there will be some wins, and being an optimist, being a car dealer for so long, you look for the wins. So the wins come from tyres. We know, I think it's 70% more tyre wear. And of course, the specialist tyres, you can't put ordinary tyres onto an EV. It will cause you issues. So we should be positioning ourselves. We know that people with EVs so far have went much longer. We've got a greater penetration for longer into an EV market. They seem to want to trust the franchise dealer. So again, we've got more opportunity. We do know that more things are going wrong with these cars, less around about the parts, more around about software. So again, we need to be in a position where we can look after that. So I think there's there's patently clear downsides in the fact that we won't be able to use oil in an engine, or there will be less, we will be able to sell less consumables. But we will still be able to sell consumables, albeit they may be different ones. So, there's, Castrol will demonstrate there's certain oils that you need to use round about an EV in terms of some of the transmissions. So again, it's about recognizing where the opportunities lie and then exploiting them, taking advantage of the fact that the customer will be with us for longer, or the next customer will be with us for longer along the way. It is the way the world's moving. Best will in the world. I know some used dealers say they won't deal with EVs, and some independents won't service EVs. Great. Please keep doing that. That leaves it more open for us. And that's what we're saying around about some of these challenges, thinking slightly outside the box, not relying on what you know, but relying on what you can learn. That's where we've just got to be a bit swifter of foot, fleeter of foot, and make sure that we realize the potential that EVs can deliver to us.
This is all coming from your long answer before we were talking about. And the other thing that I had a mental note on is the online retailers. Now, with podcasts, people might be listening to this down the track, but we're in a situation where Carvana, I believe, has lost something like 97% of its market share. That's in the US. Kazoo in the UK now. I think the IPO was 6.5 billion on the New York Stock Exchange. Last time I had looked, their market cap was down to 73 million. They're in a world of pain. Can I ask you, is the dream of mouse to house over? Are we back to people walking into a dealership? Is it a mixture? Is it clicks and bricks? The phrase I heard the other day. No. What's your view on the online disruptors? I don't even want to use the word disruptor anymore because I don't know what they disrupted. But
I think let's not forget what they did bring to us. I think in terms of their website was slick. I think some of the levels of customer service was good. Especially in the beginning, and they have demonstrated how quickly you can build a brand if you've got a big enough budget.
I get sponsoring 2 football teams helps, but that's
but they went out and they did it, but they did it with the cash. They had huge ambitions to change. And Chesterman in the UK is not, he's not stupid. He's had a couple of very successful businesses. He's what I would define as an entrepreneur, someone who does take real risk. He risks his own capital in the first couple of businesses. What I think the maybe surprise was the ability and the response of the franchise dealers, because we were clicks and bricks. We probably just weren't great at it. And what we then were given was a model of what fantastic digital sales could be. And I think we all reacted to it. Now, whether that was because we spotted the opportunity or because we were suddenly forced to with COVID lockdowns, but it was the only way we could sell a car. But I think now, if you look at the digital positioning of most franchise dealers, the level of photography, the descriptions, the ability and the speed of response will be night and day from where we were 3-4 years ago. And I think a lot of that has been down to Kazoo and Cinch in the UK, Carvana in the States. So I think we recognise what great looks like, and that's been the advantage for us. I think customers on a used vehicle would still love to touch and feel it. And no matter how good the description, they still want to do it. And we saw a huge rush back as soon as we opened the doors. And we thought, how long will this last? And it's just kept going. Now, whether it's we've trained customers for years, that's how you buy a car, or whether it's the fact that they do want to touch, feel, see the size of the car, see how it drives. It's not new, it is used. Every car is different. And I think that message goes through. So whether it's clicks and bricks, whether it's omni-channel, however you want to describe it, Simon, it's retail. If a customer wants to do the research and shop, they can do that. So 2.5% of my customers click all the way through on my website. So I'm not talking about any manufacturer on my website. Over 12.5% reserve.
Yeah.
But they come and check and look at the car and then buy it. So it's how you measure it. There is clearly a minority of customers, and a small minority will buy a car that way. The vast majority still want to come in to the dealership.
They might reserve, but touch, feel, drive. Yeah, 2% is not enough to write the business plan on, is it? But you need to have that.
It won't keep me, Mrs. Hanlon, the style to which we want to become accustomed.
Very good. Listen, I've really enjoyed this conversation. What advice would you give to someone who's just started the motor industry? Would you recommend go and look at another industry? We've had it. What advice would you have? Is it still an industry that you clearly love it?
Yeah.
But what about someone just starting, 17 years old?
No, I would. I've just had one of my friends' children started in the business, and
that says it all.
I say I am a big advocate for a business. It's a great business. It's an exciting business. It's a business you can progress through. Be diligent, listen, work hard, and you'll get the rewards. And I think this business rewards more than some other businesses where you might need your formal professional qualifications. You don't need that as much in the business, and you can achieve, similar or great rewards in this business. So yeah, I'm a wholehearted supporter, ambassador, shouter about motor retail. It's a great business. I still believe we've got a strong future ahead of us. There'll be lots of change, but every year it feels that there's a huge challenge and another change coming at us, and we seem to get through it. We will keep battling on. But yeah, I would thoroughly recommend it to anybody out there listening to it who wants a new challenge, who wants to make a difference in their own world.
Cool. Hey, listen, this question here, I have to ask it at the end because for the people who are not in the UK, this is the last week of March. Now, March is the busiest month. There's what's called a plate change for the people outside of the UK market, where the number plate changes, and it's a huge month, March and September. March being still the number one, I think, John. And this is the last week of March. We've got 2 days to go to the end of the month. And I said to John, I've got this day, but you'll be too busy. He said, no, I can do that. And so with that in mind, I ask you, how do you balance the demands of running a successful business and your personal life? What's a typical week look like for you? And how do you have the time to do this 2 days before the end of the busiest month?
Well, this has always been part of what I've done. Unashamedly, I don't spend hundreds of millions on our brand. It's around about me, it's around about, Richard and James, our board, getting out and actually selling the Waylands brand. It's not about us, it's about Waylands. So unapologetic around about the fact that we will take advantage of every opportunity to talk about a Waylands business, talk about what we do, and actively try to sell as much right about Waylands as possible. In terms of the timing, the month at this point is about still a little bit selling, a lot about delivery. So at this point of the month, I'm backed off from the management team other than what help do you need? Is there anything we need to take advantage of? Are we going to achieve the registrations? Are all the used cars going to go out? So I'm not driving the business at that point. We've done a lot of work at the beginning of the year, setting out our budgets. We've done a lot of work in the first couple of 3 weeks, making sure we understand exactly where we'll be. So actually, if anything, I'm less on the floor. I'm keeping myself out of the way of those boys running around over the next few days. They don't need my help and advice at this point. But if there is an opportunity, then I'm around and about. So that's that. In terms of the personal life, I have to admit, I don't play lots of golf. I don't have a boat. I don't have a plane. This is what I do. This is what I love. Karen has always been there, helping and supporting me all the way through. the kids now are at an age where they just sort of treat dad with enough gentle contempt that any sort of attention from them on the way through. So I love what we do. I give it as much as it needs, and that's the joy of it. Sometimes it's flat out. If we're doing, if we're working on a deal or working on an opportunity, then it is flat out, and it's it's that 24/7. When it's not, and we're in a period of consolidation, I get to think a little bit more and think about what we do and how we're going to do it. And we're probably looking at stuff that isn't quite so exciting. So preparation centres, how do we make sure that there's enough electric on every one of our sites? We've just launched a Waylands Academy to continue to develop what we do and how we do it. But that stuff isn't so much in the headlines as another big shiny building or an acquisition. But we're still busy. It's just you're working in a different way.
Perfect. Any exciting developments? You mentioned lots there, the academy there and preparation centres and that. Anything else you can, waving the brand of Waylands there that you can talk about at the moment?
Unbelievably, I'm going to let you down. We do have the official launch of All Star,
That's big.
The city space in Bristol and Cribbs Causeway. So that's tomorrow. So we're down there cutting the golden seatbelt, which is very exciting. But we've grown a lot. We've gone from 4 to 10 sites in the space of just over 24 months. So it's about
Massive
making
growth.
It's about making, we're still, we'll turn over, just 180 million. As I said, this year we should do close on 250 million. And I know that's not big numbers to a lot of the listeners, but for us, that growth from 80, 90 million up to those levels has put some strains on the business. And before we go for another push, we make sure everything's beautiful. Our brand partners are happy. The managers are happy, the other stakeholders are happy, the bank's happy, and then we go again.
Brilliant. Listen, I've really enjoyed this. How do people get hold of you, John? Is LinkedIn the easiest way for them to reach out to you?
Funnily enough, people seem to be able to find me on LinkedIn, Simon. But no, that's always the easiest. I think even the Waylands email's on there, so absolutely, that's the easiest way to get in contact.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Not at all. Thanks, Simon.
That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, simcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn. Thank you.